Hello, welcome to another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. I'm Lady TrenettWilson, your lecturer and social historian, and we are celebrating Black History Month. And I am so excited about today's lecture because I had always heard this story, but today we're going to find out the details about the real Ancient Mama, Nancy Green. She was the nation's first Black product model. And she actually was the first to uncover the truth about the racism in marketing back in those days. Now, I know from a little girl, and I bet you too, as little girl, little boys, we ate pancakes. I loved Pancake Day. And we had two choices for serve. Either was Ancient Mama or Miss Buttersworth. I always felt some kind of way though, because Ancient Mama, I never did like that name. And it always invoked to me poverty and subservience. While Miss Buttersworth, well, she was always played by a white woman. And she was kind of grandma-y, wonderful, sweet, and kind. And Danger Mama, she was always portrayed as rude, boisterous, big, all these negative stereotypes that were prevalent during the antebellum period. You see, R.T. Davis Milling Company is the owner of the Ancient Mama recipe. Many people thought that Ancient Mama or Nancy Green created the recipe. It was not. She was just a model, a product person who was out there in front. But it's because of her that that company grew to what it was, and they never paid her properly for it. Now, back in the day, during this time, so this is like the 1800s, 1834, these people were played, black women were played by white men who had on face paint, and they sung a song called Ain't Your Mama during minstrel shows. And so that's where the name Ain't Your Mama came from. But Nancy was a person who played Ain't Your Mama. And there were several people after Nancy who played, but she played it the longest. Nancy was born a slave on March the 4th, 1834, and she was one of the first African American models hired to promote a corporate trademark. Huh. A dubious distinction, if you ask me. She was hired to push a negative depiction of black hardworking women. And I would venture to say if they were sassy, it's because they were having to be slaves and taking care of other people's children. And when they approached Nancy, I'm not even going to hate on her for playing the role. She was 59 years old when they approached her. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and begin at the beginning. Now, Nancy, again, I was saying she was born in on March the 4th, 1834, and she was born in Montgomery County, and it was in Somerset Creek in Kentucky. So her birthplace was Kentucky. Now, we don't know anything about her mother and father because back then they did not have birth certificates. Slaves did not have that nor marriage certificates. But we do know that she had to have been married because her name was Green and her husband's name was George Green. We know that they had two children. So, she had to have been married. Now, Nancy's enslavers were Samuel Johnson Walker and his wife Amanda. She worked as their nurse, their cook, their housekeeper. And when their kids grew up, she took care of their kids. Can you imagine being a slave and working for somebody for two generations, three generations? Mm-mm-mm. So sadly, by the end of the Civil War, Nancy had experienced pain that you could never imagine. She had lost her husband and her two children. So here she was now alone. The war was over, so there was no more slavery, but I mean, racism all over the place. So she was really dealing with a lot. So in the early 1870s, she moved from Kentucky to Chicago with the Walkers. But this time, she wasn't their slave. She was their paid live-in nanny, but she wasn't getting paid much. Now, by this time, Nancy was 59 years old, and the Walkers, who were friends with the milling company owner, suggested Nancy to be their spokesperson for their new, pancake mix. Now, I can tell you this right now. They wanted Nancy to convince people that she was the one who created this mix because Aunt Jemima back then was depicted of as this black woman who could cook really well, and if she made it, it was going to be delicious, which meant that more people would buy the mix. So she really undergirded their business. They couldn't have moved forward without her face, without this cockamamie story that they then came up with, that she created this product, and she didn't. The One of the owners said that they wanted authenticity, and they wanted people to believe that an ex-slave created this. So dirty business, racist. I just can't believe that they would do people like this. And Nancy, when they approached her and they signed her to a contract, she was 59 years old. They say the contract was about $20,000 a year. However, they wanted her to sign for a lifetime. What she decided to do was only to work for 20 years for them. Now, some people may feel like, because this perpetuated this notion that black women were this this forever made, but she didn't have anything, so maybe that's one of the reasons she did play it. I don't want to judge the woman. She did what she had to take care of herself at that time. So, all dolled up in her apron and her headscarf, in 1893 she began to play the role of Aunt Jemima. She was introduced at the World's Columbian Exposition, and it was held in Chicago. And my girl, had to stand next to a 24-foot barrel of flour. And there she sang, she made pancakes, and she wanted the people to feel like she created it. And if they bought it, that they would be so happy and it would be so delicious. Mm, 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 mm. Now, you go to expos today and you see people doing things, but it was not this. It's not this terrible stereotype that had been created in the mind of these people who had enslaved us and thought that's where we should be and that's where we should stay. So it was horrible. But I wanted to tell this story because we have young men right now who play sports, and their name, likeness, and image are being used to make other people millionaires. And I want us to know, look what happened in the past. Let's tighten it up. Let's know how to move today so this will not be our story. Build in guaranteed money, no matter if they get hurt or not before they go to the league. Build in other perks, apartments, all kinds of stuff. If they want that player on that team, they can pay him. If you are going on an academic scholarship, they can pay you. If you are working with a company and you're doing something from them, you can write in something as far as your name, likeness, and image being used in forever by this company. Well, then you need to get paid forever, even if it's a small percentage. So that's not what happened with her. People said she was a millionaire. No, she was not. $20,000 a year is not a millionaire. Now, she wasn't broke, and she did a lot better than most people during that time, but she was not a millionaire. That would have been about $200,000 today. So 20,000, 200,000 today. So, back then, $200,000 certainly went a lot further than it does today. But, she had bills, and they said she wasn't a millionaire. In fact, by the time she passed away, she was living with someone. From there, she went to fairs, festivals, flea markets, and grocery stores to hawk their stuff. When she was coming to town, they would put out flyers and it would say, "Eyes in town, honey." That's what the flyer said. Now, if you're an owner and you pay someone, what do y'all think? And you pay someone to just to be a face of your product, should you pay them forever? So that's a good question. Let's get into conversation. I just kind of feel some kind of way because she was a slave and she got their company up and going, and I feel like they should. She was an old lady already, so they could have paid her until she passed away. That's just the way I feel. But you tell me down below how you feel about it. Now, people literally believe that she created this pancake mix. So they paid, the business skyrocketed. But in 1900, Nancy refused to cross the ocean to go to Paris to promote the mix. So she quit. They fired her. However it happened, the contract was ended. And see, that'll tell you too how they really feel about you. Because you know what happened? They replaced her time and time and time again. So there have been dozens, thousands of ancient mamas because they would have these events all over the country selling this mix. So that's what happened. So she quit, and she passed away in 1923, and she lived off of her money that she had made when she was working for them. And that's pretty good to be able to save 20 for 23 years. Some people can't even save for 23 days. So that's really good. But she wasn't a rich woman, and I can tell you why she wasn't. Because when she was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave. There wasn't a headstone put on her grave until September the 5th, 2020. The people who were working to get the headstone on the grave contacted Quaker Oats in order to, get some help with the headstone. And they said, reportedly, allegedly, Quaker Oats said, Nancy Green and Aunt Jemima are not the same. Again, cold, right? So this is how this company treated her. And let me also say that it wasn't just Quaker Oaks, it was also Pepsico. So there were two companies that really did her bad. In 2014, her ancestors, they tried to sue the Quaker Oats Company and PepsiCo for billions of dollars because they felt like, they owed them money back. But the judge dismissed it without prejudice, which means they can bring the case back again. But this case was back in February 18th, 2015. So it's been a long time and there's been no update or if they sued them again. If their ancestors out there, I think maybe they need to try to go again after that money again. The other part is that was interesting about this situation is not only did the family sue them, but there became an upcry back in 2013, 2014, and 2015 to get that name Ancient Mama off of the front of Ancient Mama box. And so that's why they call it now the Pearl Milling Company. That's the original name of the company who created the pancake mix. So that's the story of Nancy Green and Aunt Jemima and the Pearl Milling Company and all of it. And now, I hope that you can eat pancakes again. Maybe you do a different brand, but that's the history of it. And I hope that you enjoyed the lesson. I hope that you learned about how companies can do, even people who are with them, like I said, almost 20 years. Lillian was with them for 23 years, and they did nothing for neither one of these people's families who carried their product. I really appreciate you joining me for our lecture. We're going to continue with our Black history, learning about people that we really never hear about. And I know this ancient mama story was kind of in the atmosphere and people kind of knew some things, they didn't know the full story. I really can't wait to see what you all put down below about should she have gotten paid or not. But I want you to know that I appreciate you tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the lecture. My resources were Nancy Green, the original Aunt Your Mama, Sam Roberts, Overlooked No More, Nancy Green, the real Ain't Your Mama, and the Chicago Daily Tribune. So as always, thank you, Roilers, for tuning in. If this is your first time, you've been sneaking around, coming in, listening to our lectures, come on and join the Royal Black and Elite family and press that subscribe button. Also, leave a comment, share for Black History Month and even beyond. And I want to thank you so much for joining me. Now, I'll see you on another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. Thanks for watching.